Kenya. I see your feedback. I'll be reading some of them. Use the hashtag Daybreak. Chesa, what is so wrong with fixing the loopholes that we've now seen on CBC? Because like Otoa says, the train has left the station.
You know, Otoa is a very funny man. On behalf of the CS, he is inviting stakeholders at this critical level of sympathizing with the CS and providing mitigation, when they ought to have done this at the very inception of this curriculum. And Trevor, in a layman's language, if the foundation of your house is so irredeemable that no person can work on it, you take the move to actually bring down the house and lay a new foundation. This train called CBC has not left the station. It is still at the station, and the best thing to do is to switch it off. Because what we are asking is very fundamental. We are asking, are we prepared as a nation to get the resources to buy and develop the necessary infrastructure? If the answer is in the affirmative, we go to the next question and ask, are we prepared as a nation to triple the human resource in the teaching profession to meet the needs of implementing CBC? If the answer is in the affirmative, we go to the next question. Is the CBC going to serve our needs as a nation? Do we have the even distribution of resources amongst our parents and the communities to support the CBC? Unfortunately, the answer to the foregoing four questions is in the negative. There are no loopholes to actually make on clear and make the curriculum move on. This curriculum is irredeemable. This curriculum has failed. And the more we struggle to move forward with it, the more we're inviting trouble to our education system. I've given you a simple example of December next year, when the grade 6 pupils are sitting the exams. Remember, 40% of the assessment is being done now, and NEC will assess up to 60%. And in December, we shall be having a new government, a new transition, a new CS, a completely new structure. A president who may come in may not retain Dr. Chege as the PS in terms of implementation of this curriculum. So this thing cannot work. And we've not departed from 844 fundamentally. And as Sosion rightly puts it, we can actually put these two curriculum together, improve on the 844, borrow from the CBC, and move on. Okay. Suspend this curriculum.
Suspend it immediately. Right. Otoa, you're taking part in the curriculum review.
Yeah.
What were recommendations on that? What were the recommendations?
The recommendations, we were actually, we were cognizant of the challenges that my brother, Sosion and Chesa are putting on the ground here.
Yeah.
We advised the government and other stakeholders that challenges that bedevil CBC are as glaring as the devil facing the foe in the eye. We did cite the challenges of economics.
Yeah. And
we say there must be a robust and deliberate action by the government to pump in finances into implementation of this curriculum.
Yeah.
Has it done so?
Whether it has done that or it is in the process of doing that, Sosion, it is not, I'm not holding brief to the government to, but very quickly, Trevor,
yeah.
and I want to maybe address my two brothers here.
Yeah.
Was CBC or is CBC the best thing that ever could have happened to Kenyans, or the Kenyan child as well as the Kenyan fraternity? My answer, I will not actually fidget here. I will say to the affirmative, yes. CBC was the best thing that could have happened. If it is correctly and properly implemented. Why am I saying that? If you look at the structure and the construction of the curriculum itself, Trevor, there is two things that I think, or three things that I think I want to leverage here. One is the question of values. Values have been deliberately built in from the very formative stage of learning to the advanced stages. We now want to produce a holistic person. I, as a teacher, Otoa Sifuna, I keep on saying that we have been dwelling on, concentrating, teaching the head for so many years. It is time that we reverted to teach the heart as well as the hands. If that is a paradigm shift, yeah, it is the likes of my brother here, Sosion, to give the technical assistance. HSA is coming from the universities here. There is a big problem in the university, HSA. The mismatch of what we are producing vis-a-vis what the job market wants. World over, people have realized one cardinal thing, that for us to remain competitive, for us to produce what the labor market really wants, we need to go back to the drawing board and rethink seriously on the type of education we are giving to our young people. So but for us to sincerely say that let's abandon this whole thing,
are you as
the merits of CBC, Trevor, outweighs its demerits.
Are you as teachers adequately trained?
No.
That is now the big question that I started off with.
Yeah.
Challenges that bedevil CBC, Trevor, are still live. For instance, I have an issue with the training and the personnel.
Yeah.
To pick a pilot programming and pick a sample number of teachers and say that you're going to train maybe 5 teachers representing maybe a population of 5,000 was a wrong sampling. And I did start by saying this. We as a government, and I think I'm speaking to my good president, Uhuru Kenyatta, and his CS, Professor George Magoha, if you are indeed serious in implementing CBC, and I've said here as Otoa Sifuna, your legacy, part of your legacy shall be how well did CBC roll out. And I'm telling you, Mr. President, if CBC fails, as it is proposed here by Sosion and Echesa, you have an egg on your face. Professor George Magoha, you will have an egg on your face.
Okay.
So if it was me seated to where you're sitting now, I would guard CBC like I guard my firstborn child.
Okay. So Sosion, let's be practical here. Okay, you and Echesa say the train should be switched off. Fine. How do we fix the weaknesses of 844 then?
Every curriculum all over the world must be reviewed every 5 years. All curriculum, they must undergo review. And there's a big difference between review and reform. What the government is trying to do is to shake up the entire system through reform, which is not working. And I think the best thing that should have been done, and when you look at the government policy plan, reform was not on the table. 2014, the CBC was not in the mind of the government of the country or even in the sector. 2015, it wasn't there. 2016, it was not there. What government needs to do is to accept to undertake a review so that we can change what needs to be changed, we can improve what needs to be improved. Because the truth of the matter is, proceeding on with the CBC, and it has not gone very far. It is only at grade 5, and grade 5 where no piloting was done. Piloting has not been done in grade 6, and even if it was done, it will still give us the complicated challenges. And therefore, there is need to scale down from reform to review, so that we have a systematic and seamless mobility of learners to the next level. We cannot imagine the double intake of 2023, which already schools are reeling from the problem of 100% transition. It was a political directive by the president. And you know, the president said, yes, it's better when all these learners are in school rather than being at home. But now the congestion in schools is just too much. Schools cannot run, they cannot manage. And the requisite resources, the necessary preparation in terms of infrastructure has not been done. Let us look at it in 2023, double intake. We have never had a double intake in the basic education level. And the situation where we experience a double intake in the basic education means poor planning. And what we are discussing here, and in fact, I challenge the ministry, if this matter of CBC is taken to the court of law, it will be nullified. The rollout will be nullified very early in the morning, worse even than the BBI, because there was no effective public participation in this process. We must submit this whole curriculum reform and review process to proper and extensive quality public participation, and that should have been taken care of at the policy formulation stage. There are many issues being raised. Oh, that this curriculum is rich in terms of values. I don't think there is any education system in the world that does not emphasize on values. Let's look at the goals of education. In this country. There are about 10 or 15. One of them is patriotism, and the values are there. And in fact, all of us teachers, when you are trained, if I can jog the memory of my brother, Otoa Sifuna, we are trained in 3 serious domains, cognitive, and psychomotor, and affective. Cognitive is knowledge. And learners at this level, at the basic level, at the pre-primary, primary, and secondary, are concentrated on basically knowledge and a bit of psychomotor skills. That's what you train. Before then, they move to post-basic to look at then the competencies that they discover, that you are a good engineer, you are a good musician, you are a good, whatever, you discover your careers. And that is why introduction of careers, career choices begins at Form 1, Form 2. You begin preparing learners to think about their career. Yeah. Then there is the third aspect which goes on every day, affective. That is inculcating values in the learner. The teacher affects the learners, and we are all trained, and we do it every day. I don't think there is any teacher who goes to any class in Kenya without promoting and inculcating good values on the learners. Right. That is there. So basically, where we are, the train is at the station, and it has no diesel, and therefore it cannot even be switched on. We are still contemplating. We are still grumbling through darkness, and I'm saying so very boldly here. I've been quiet for a while, and when we raise these issues, and you know, 285 teachers to be dismissed and interdicted for questioning the quality of training. Do you know what has happened? Teachers have kept quiet and have gone under, and they've shut up. They're basically waiting for their salaries. They're no longer giving their views because they're intimidated and threatened by the state. And therefore, the truth of the matter is, no teacher is teaching CBC in our education system. They're still teaching the outcome-based teaching, and if we do any serious assessment, and that is number one. Number two, the parents are confused. They don't understand. Number three, the government is refusing to accept that the rollout has indeed really failed. It is time for us to review what has been going on, and if Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, is not willing to apply his mind and ask his men and women whom he has given the task to undertake education. And here, I will not be talking about the CS. The buck stops at the presidency. Because when you bring in a curriculum that threatens the future of learners, that is controlled by foreigners, of course, this becomes a national security threat. Therefore, there is need to get down and reformat our education system and agree whether, and for me, my strong recommendation is the economy of Kenya cannot sustain CBC. CBC definitely, if rolled out with the necessary resources, is the best. Finland has done it, and Singapore has done it. But their economies are strong enough to sustain. How long will it take for the Kenya government to build adequate classrooms, to put to put desks, to train enough teachers? So I think basically the truth of the matter is tell Kenyans the truth. And I would like, even you, the media, you do a survey, countrywide survey. What are the teachers thinking in the classrooms? What is the feeling of parents? Because their say is also extremely important. And every day as we assemble this data, we see the huge concern of teachers that things are not working. And the train is not moving. The engine, the engine has refused to work. I see and so there is need for us.
I see Dr. Bite the bullet. Dr. Julius Juan is actually trying to reach me right now. He's the Principal Secretary, State Department of Early Learning and Basic Education. He was very instrumental when it comes to CBC. We are giving him a call just now to dive into this conversation. Kindly down the number that was just sent right now. And Chesa, what you are saying right now, do we agree then that 844 had its own challenges? Yes or no?
Yes.
So how do we fix those challenges?
Yeah.
We look at the Koech report of 1999 and look at what the CBC provides and see, work out on a program where we can borrow from the CBC recommendations and try to mitigate the problems that the 844 system had. 844, just like any other curriculum, was bound to have weaknesses. If we kept on reviewing 844 after every 5 years, we will not be where we are today.
Correct.
That particular curriculum will have been mitigated and will be moving forward.
All right. So for you, it's just a review.
It's just a review. Things they are teaching now, like home science, Trevor, are things I was taught in class 5 in 1999.
Yeah.
You go and cook. You come with maize, the music, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Those are things we used to do. But at one time, the Ministry of Education, and improperly so, did away with these subjects. Students were never taught home science, were never taught practical-oriented subjects.
Yeah.
Why can we bring those things back? Why can't we enrich 844 as we prepare to roll out any other curriculum properly and with consultation?
Okay.
CBC was not a kind of a curriculum, Trevor, to roll out within a year or 2 years or 3 years. It was an afterthought. CBC requires close to 20 years to put in place the necessary infrastructure to support the curriculum. Okay. Otherwise, what you are telling, what Magoha and the minister are telling us, and Otoa here are telling us, that no, we have left the station, we can repair this, we can do this and move on. The more steps we make forward, one step forward in sympathizing with CBC, 10 steps backward in messing with our education sector.
Okay.
If BBI was stopped at that advanced stage, what about
this one?
Okay. Do we have Dr. Juan already? Okay, Dr. Juan is joining us on phone now. Let's hear from him. Dr. Julius Juan is the Principal Secretary, State Department of Early Learning and Basic Education. He was also very instrumental when it comes to CBC. Dr. Juan, what is your assessment of CBC? And you've heard what my panelists are saying here.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Trevor. I think it would have been best, in my view, to invite one of us to come and also participate in the discussion.
Yes.
Because the issues that I see the Honorable Sosion is raising are basically what I would call the same emotional issues that he raised when he was the NAT Secretary. Yeah. Trevor, we know very well that the conception of competency-based education in general is something that started with the Odhiambo report, which I know Honorable Sosion will indicate that was shot down in KICC. But technically, we know that the issues that were raised were basically what was bothering NAT then was the issue of placement in terms of having 6 years in primary and the rest, so that could reduce the number of NAT members. That's not the issue here. Don't forget that the issue of consultation and public participation in CBC had been taken to court before. Yeah. And we submitted all the documents that showed that we went to every region of this country. We went to NAT itself, and Honorable Sosion himself invited us with all the NAT executive members in 2016 in his office. And they looked at CBC and they gave their comments and said, this is good, proceed. So one, trying to say that CBC was an afterthought is not true, because go to the Odhiambo report and look at the recommendations there. I'm shocked that Honorable Sosion can say that we had values even in the previous education. I am a teacher, I used to teach, and all we used to do then was to try and ensure that at the end of the year, your column as a teacher can show that your learners have achieved this grade. I think that is no secret in Kenya now, that everybody wants a paper, regardless of how that paper looks like. So trying to say that every education system has values, we have a difference between what somebody has in papers and what is being taught in the classroom. Honorable Sosion knows this very well. Number three, let me talk about the issue of training of teachers that he's been talking about over and over again. Other than the initial training that we give to the teachers, Trevor, as I talk now, you are aware that we have an upgrade program that teachers who have not been employed by CSC are getting back into our TTCs to have a one-year upgrade program to enhance their pedagogy to deliver on CBC. And I want people to get this very clearly. When we talk about competency-based education, we are not talking about a transformation in content. Content is being modified, but it is the pedagogy, the how of teaching in a classroom. So let us not try to imagine that now when you talk of CBC, 1 + 1 will become 4. 1 + 1 will remain 2. The only thing that we are changing drastically is how do you make the learners appreciate that this is how you can deal with 1 + 1. The other component that I want to talk about, which again I've seen being raised very drastically, is about classrooms and infrastructure. It was stated very clearly that as much as we are going to ensure that we place the junior secondary within the existing secondary schools, where we have infrastructure within the existing primary schools, we are going to place the learners to learn there. So we want people to conceptualize placement here, not in terms of physical location, but in terms of the content that is being taught at that level. That is not a physical thing, because even now we have schools that start from standard 1 up to Form 4. And learners are learning. What matters is the gradual content changes that take place. So I think, and then finally, Trevor, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Curriculum is a living thing. Internationally, as we talk now, curriculum is conceived. In fact, in some countries, the review of various learning areas take place every year as research is being conducted. So, saying that we wait for 5 years, then we review the curriculum, and the train has not left the station, let's leave politics out of the learners of our children. The people who have looked at CBC are people who are well-grounded in academics and in education. So, Trevor, I wish you had invited me to come and sit down with my colleagues. We go through the processes one by one, and instead of trying to assume that now we are rubbishing everything, where are the structures, we are destroying a country, why are we behaving like people who have not been in school? I'm sorry, Trevor, but I've looked at the kind of arguments that are being propagated here, and I'm shocked that even somebody like Sosion, who went with us through all the processes, now comes back and says as if the country is coming to a standstill. I'm sorry for that, but I think I need a proper engagement on this, so that we look at how we're handling assessment, what can we do better. I mean, even when we started 844, Trevor, I've had somebody talking about legal issues here, that there was no sessional paper. I have asked them before, can they tell me the sessional paper that anchored 844? And I wanted to explain to them, a sessional paper covers the entire education framework. Curriculum is just a chapter within a sessional paper in education. And the fact that the sessional paper on CBC, on the entire education came back and captured what is supposed to be done in education. Sessional paper is not about a curriculum. It is about the entire education structure. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ari.
Right of response.
Thank you. I think I'll have a right of...
It's a very comprehensive response.
Reply is not comprehensive. I think Dr. Juan is being... I think I can define him as a perfect insurance broker. He would pass as a very good, because he would paint everything look so nice, yet the details are very wanting. Trying to insinuate that I was emotional at that time is actually a wrong, it's an uncivil statement from a public officer.
Let's
I was speaking on behalf of teachers. Yes, I'm answering him because he has alluded that I was looking at the reduction of membership of NAT. I'm no longer Secretary General NAT. I left NAT. And we were looking empirically about the professional rollout of the CBC.
Was there a
must accept
between the ministry and yourselves? Do you admit that? Did they come?
Even if they came to share a few findings with us, in fact, we can say very, very clearly, when you talk of public participation, it must be quality public participation. When you walk to NAT and ask us a few questions, that does not pass as quality public participation. And this is a matter of another evaluation to really audit and check whether really there was a serious public participation. So public participation, according to Juan, was very well done. But look at the parents, look at all institutions, look at the universities, where he comes from. His own colleagues, even in education department and the researchers are saying they're not involved. And let there be evidence. Evidence of participation of universities and the experts is through studies and reports and papers. We need to see that. That's number one. And then the one-year upgrade and training for teachers, those yet to be employed by TSC, yes, is a good move. This is where they should have started. Sessional paper. Of course, the sessional paper was tabled in 2019 in Parliament. 2019, 2 years after rollout, and a sessional paper with a lot of gaps, which really was not also addressed with the details that it really deserved. I wish to say 844 was discussed and tabled in Parliament for adoption by the National Assembly under the government of President Moi. CBC has not, and I dare challenge Dr. Juan, has not been discussed for adoption by the National Assembly. It ought to be discussed extensively so that the necessary legislation can be considered by the National Assembly, so that the necessary financing can be considered by the National Assembly, and so that the final policy of CBC can be adopted. Dr. Juan has presided over fraud as a director at KICD. That I can say it in front of the camera. I've been very kind and very reserved. And if I were the President Uhuru Kenyatta at the tail end will discover that he has been taken for a ride by many of his officers. And it has come a time that the rollout of CBC must be subjected to a thorough forensic audit to save resources and save the children of this country. Now, in addition to that, in addition, there was a study conducted by Professor Fatuma Chege. The executive summary was released and pronounced by the president. But none of the reports has been circulated to the critical institution, including universities. I can challenge universities. Do you have the copies of the report of the task force of Fatuma Chege? No. They are not in the universities. They are not in schools. They are not in education offices. We only got an executive media summary, and that was it. That was the end of it. We've not seen those reports. We've been looking for them. And I dare challenge Dr. Juan, at the end of this meeting, can we get those reports, if really they do exist? No. Because what happened after the release of that task force report in February, which was a first aid activity being carried out by the government and misguiding the head of state, is that a State Department for rollout of CBC was created, and the chair of the task force was rewarded as the principal secretary. That was the end of the story. We've not seen the reports. We need those reports. And that is why when we talk of fraud in this process, we are saying it, and I'm speaking as a legitimate leader in this country with the right experience, and I'm speaking the truth of what teachers would speak in this country.
For me, Trevor, and that's why I carved a niche into, from the very beginning of this debate by saying that I think I'll be the only voice of reason and sobriety here. When two antagonists come together and they are seeing differences rather than coming together and saying that these are the weaknesses, these are, even in SWOT analysis, you want to look at the strength, you want to look at the weaknesses, you want to look at the opportunities, and you want to look at the time frame. Trevor, if we allow a situation, yes, I'm a teacher, and it really pains me a lot, and my pain goes to the innocent child, Kenyan child, and by extension a parent, because Trevor, if you are a parent, and you can see this whole shenanigan of the implementation of CBC happening, you can only reckon and sympathize for your child. is my child being used as a it's called what? A guinea pig, experimental testing. Yes, and we must not come to that level where we are experimenting with our children.
Yeah.
The whole concept is, and for me, who has had some hands-on experience of this whole idea, I would say that, yes, I'm trying to look at both sides. Can teachers be innovative, for instance? Sosioni is pointing out the cost of implementing CBC. And I've looked at even their designing, curriculum design. Trevor, I was fortunate to do the designing for grade 7, 8, and 9. Yeah. Which is almost coming, because when you are talking of grade 6 almost sitting for their summative assessment, then the big question, the elephant in the room becomes, how are we going to now navigate through the lower secondary? Yeah. I think those are the questions that Sosyon, Echesa, and other, and I agree with him, that if there is a state officer, especially that is domiciled within this department, and he is not on the ground working, those are the officers that Sosyon is saying are letting down the president. But very quickly, Trevor, I will go back to the content and the framework of the CBC. Is CBC solving part of the 21st century challenges that are envisioned among our learners? To me, as Otoa Sifuna, I have read through the philosophy and the design, and I think I am persuaded that right now, as we speak, Trevor, the challenge, the 21st century challenge that bedevils the Kenyan youth who is in school must actually be re-engineered. The question of resilience. Trevor, you are seeing a lot of half-baked graduates when they come out. And I, as a teacher, I even stopped telling my students, you know, Kitambo, we used to sing a very interesting song, so many vijana, mutakapo maliza shule, mutapata kazi nzuri sana. That one, I stopped that narrative, because we need to be creators now. If you look at some of the international, global jurisdictions that Sosyon here and Echesa are alluding to, it is cognizant of one thing: a curriculum, an education that is dynamic and meets the challenges of the modern time. As a nation, did we realize the reality of that? The same jurisdiction of Singapore and Finland that my good brother Sosyon has alluded to. Yes, that is the hard way that we must walk to. So for me, I want to call for sobriety. For me, I want to call for some collaboration, collaborative working. Can the recommendations, like my brother is saying, Fatuma Chege's recommendations, be brought? We must not implement CBC in secrecy. If participation was done, and CBC implementation is in phases. I know, yes, Sosyon had raised some fundamental questions at the formative stages of public participation. Whether he was answered to his satisfaction, I don't know. But for me, Trevor, now I am asking the big question. We have already subjected the Kenyan child up to the almost the 6th grade now, to a new curriculum. What will be the collateral damage of going back to the factory setting? Number 2, the global community is embracing one thing, that education is dynamic. And so, if you do your research, you will realize that most global jurisdictions left the stations long time ago by embracing what we call a competence concept-based curriculum. And number 3, the ever-changing workplace. And I want to salute the TVET. The TVET sector is actually doing a lot in just trying to revamp that particular. We must, Trevor, come to the reality that our work, our opportunities have really changed. The other day I was here, I said if Royal Media Services wanted a graduate, and every time we churn out so many graduates from all the levels of education, if you wanted just somebody to fix the bulb here, some technical hands-on experience. I'm telling you, you will do an advert and you might even re-advertise it.
Okay.
That is the question that Sosion and Chesa here, who teaches at the university, must answer. Our university education at Chesa has largely remained very, very rote learning and theoretical.
All right.
I personally went through that, in as much as I did language and literature, but I can tell you that the greatest undoing that we are doing to our children is to give them a theoretical, rote learning system of education.
Okay.
And for that matter, I think the panacea to all this will be a competent, best curriculum.
Okay. We need to get Dr. Julius Juan again back online. He has a quick comment to make in response to Sosion. Let's do that right now. Do you want to make a comment as well?
No, he can make the
comment.
comment.
No, we don't have him yet. Right.
Very well. Trevor, it is unfortunate.
Yeah.
It is this unmitigated institutional arrogance from technocrats like Dr. Juan and Professor Magoha that have led us to where we are. It is this know-it-all attitude that has led us to where we are. Instead of seeking stakeholder participation and involvement, the ministry is busy calling voices of reasons as emotional and incompetent to comment on this matter. What I wish Dr. Juan to do to help this discussion and enrich it would be to tell us, have they given sufficient financial resources to schools to help in the rollout of CBC? I have a circular with me here from one of the head teachers in my local constituency, where Dr. Juan and his ministry have given 132 shillings and 75 cents for account 1, Simba account, and 172 shillings and 50 cents for account 2. That is about 300 shillings per student in one term. Can 300 shillings per student in one term help in facilitating the implementation of the CBC? The PS has not made any mention of the financial resources involved. The PS has not addressed an issue of human resource. What is the role of TSC in this matter? The PS should be telling us, I have spoken to TSC, they are going to employ this number of teachers by this time to mitigate the issue of understaffing in our secondary schools. For God's sake, 844 was teaching 6 subjects. CBC is teaching about 13 subjects. Why do you double the number of subjects and do nothing in terms of improving the human resource? Who are the teachers?
So you've asked 2 questions so far. We have him online now.
Yes, on the resources, financial resources, what they were giving to teachers in 2003 to schools is what they are giving in 2021. And Otoa here wants to believe, make us believe that, you know, we are a modern society with the funding of the 2003. That is a fallacy.
Honorable Sosion, hold on, your microphone is on. So
and he has not told us the human resource. How many teachers have been employed? How many are going to be employed? And how prepared are those teachers? And John is making a very dangerous statement that they are busy training teachers who are not in service, those who have not been employed. Why will they have trained them now and they roll out a CBC in 10 years' time when a majority of the teachers are being trained? In secondary schools today, you advertise for art and design, for music, for computer. You don't get the applicants. Yet the same fellas are now going to junior secondary in 2023 and they'll require competently trained teachers to teach these subjects. Where are we going to get them?
All right.
Let us call a spade and say that Dr. Juan and Professor Magoha are some of the technocrats that have let down the president insofar as the rolling out and implementation of the CBC is concerned. And history will judge them harshly.
Let me give him a chance to respond straight up. Dr. Juan, and I know you are listening to Chesa here. What is your direct response?
Thank you once more, Mbija. Mbija, allow me to respond to a few things. One.
Yes, go ahead.
Is that if Sosion brands me a good insurance seller or broker, then I must be a very good one, because he was convinced and he went with us along. But anyway, that is not the point. One of the first things that I want to mention, Mbija, is that if I see a discussion that is based on ignorance, I will state it as that. If that is being considered being arrogant, then I'm very sorry because I'm speaking from a point of knowledge. I'm speaking from a point of what I've read, and therefore I don't need to be apologetic about it. But let me address the key issues here. In the last 3 weeks on Bija, I was attending the Global Partnership for Education Replenishment for Funding.
Yeah.
We had the entire world there looking at education. And we had experts who have looked at our education system and the trajectory that we are taking as a country. And Umbija, I want to tell you, it was said that we are taking the right trajectory. Number two, I want to talk about funding. Yeah. In all the presentations that were made there, and records are there for those who are there and if you want to read, Kenya is currently one of the countries that is pumping the highest amount of money in terms of budgetary allocation in education. I think what my colleagues should be addressing is CBC is already here with us. CBC is the right way to go for the country and the world at large. I said earlier that curriculum is a living thing. When I said that curriculum is a living thing, what I meant is that we are not supposed to reform a curriculum, put it in the locker, wait for 10 years or 5 years, and then go ahead and say, now we want to review or reform the curriculum. Research is constantly going on to look at the various aspects of what needs to be improved because the rate at which the world is changing, the rate at which technology is changing, the rate at which the youth are getting adopted to new way of doing things is very high. So as we talk now, I think what we should be discussing, every education across the world has challenges. We have even looked at the curriculum of Finland that was talked about. I have discussed issues relating to curriculum in Canada, which is based on the provinces. Every country, if you go for any curriculum conference or discussion, will tell you they have challenges.
Yeah.
What we need to be discussing now, as we go on with rolling out CBE, that is competence-based education, what are the areas that we need to keep improving on? What are things that we need to be modifying to make sure that we keep pace with the changing world?
Yeah.
Trying to say that now, and I don't know why my colleagues are really rushing at we have failed the president. I mean, we have not failed the president. If we have failed ourselves and the people of Kenya because we are Kenyan, we have children in Kenya. We are not people who came from Mars somewhere, stood on the side and told the president, for example, do this. We are part and parcel of this country, and our children are also benefiting from the same thing that we are discussing. So what my colleagues should tell us, do research, bring the papers, let us discuss. This area is supposed to be done this way. So I've addressed the issue of resources, and I've told them the amount of money we are putting in education in this country. Read literature, discuss with any country, and come and tell us that the resources what we need to do is look at how we can modify that. Then number two, let me talk about the training.
Yeah. Because
I think we are missing the point here. I told you I'm a teacher. When you're being trained as a teacher, you are trained on various pedagogical ways of disseminating knowledge. The people we have in the field now as teachers went through basic training on different ways of teaching, whether you want to use discussion, whether you want to use play, whether you want to use question answer, name it. Yeah. What is being done now that my colleague is talking about is called training, but basically it is reorienting our teachers to use some of the methods that they were not using dominantly to be the dominant methods of teaching. So when we talk of training here, we are not talking about people who don't know anything about teaching. We are talking about reorienting them. And finally, I know I mentioned something about the upgrading of those who have not been recruited. Now, the teachers who are already recruited by TSC, other than the initial, what I call the orientation that they've been going through, we have also designed a school-based program. And you can go and check this anywhere, Trevor. When we looked at Shanghai in 2016 and 2017, when they were the best in PISA assessment, what they do and what many countries do is that you help support the teacher within the functioning area. So that is where the school-based program comes in, so that those who are already teaching in schools, in the public schools, can get an opportunity at will, at their own time, to upgrade their skills. I think that is what happens across the world. So if I appeared arrogant, I'm very sorry, but I think, Trevor, because these are very technical things, and I think we have to delineate when we are discussing technical issues, with trying to rush, we have failed the president, we are Kenyans, Trevor. Our children are learning in this country. Let us not run to political issues that we have failed the president. If we have failed ourselves.
Okay.
All of us. Thank you very much.
Well noted. Thank you so much. That's Dr. Julius Juan. He's the Principal Secretary, State Department of Early Learning and Basic Education. This conversation seems not going to end today because we really have a lot of feedback coming through. Let's read some of the feedback. There's a lot of it coming through. We'll be doing a disservice to Kenyans if we don't put their voice up. Let's bring it up and see what they're saying. And we have Felix Atandi, who says, for sure, CBC is not working at all because Kenya as a nation has not reached that level of CBC. It's expensive and facilitators have no knowledge on it. It's tiresome and disturbing those involved. CBC books have many errors too, okay? Selina Wakati says it's good, but the government should buy all the things needed for projects because you can't expect mzazi analipwa 10K a month na akona watoto wanne aje anunue those things needed every day. The government should provide, okay? Prophet Sereti says, this CBC has drained my teaching methodology. Time required per single lesson exceeds the imagination. This CBC has forced some of us teachers to choose either ignorance or make authority happy. CBC's content blank. Isaac Mudusi says, CBC is excellent. I like the daily teacher-parent involvement in child learning. The biggest derailment is cost. It's extremely expensive. Being a playgroup parent, I can testify. PK Chelsard says it's too demanding financially for most Kenyans. It will require greater government intervention to work. Jacob Abere says the bottleneck issues on CBC most are in infrastructure developments like electricity, internet connections, and training of teachers on syllabus tackling. Abdirahman Ali says CBC is good. It gives learners better skills, equip them with self-confidence and 100% practical. Though the program is expensive, parents have to dig deeper into their pockets. It's not easy to sustain. It has given us hard time. What do we do? God bless Kenya. Okay? Gaina says, I think Kenya is not ready for this CBC. My daughter always wants downloaded and printed pictures and cannot go to school without them. What happens to village guys who can't access internet? Koech Charles says, CBC is like the initial 844. If we didn't learn our lessons from the initial 844, then CBC shall fall into the same pitfall. Initial 844 was skills-oriented with subjects like art and craft, music, HSC, that's home science, agriculture, woodwork, etc., but wasn't well funded by the government. Serem says, I was from Rwanda recently where they use the CBC system. It doesn't work for them, and most students come to Kenya from Rwanda to further their studies. I think Kenya, we are headed in the wrong direction. Inya Kweba says, unfortunately, Kenya is a country where we don't listen to professional input. Research has been conducted on CBC by professionals. Let people not oppose because of self-interest. The bigger picture is fundamental. Ndungu Wanana says, India started education reforms way ahead of Kenya. Process has been extensively participatory and inclusive. Unfortunately, in Kenya, CBC is just a vendor, consultants, and bureaucrats-driven system. No policy, legal, and budgetary approval for all. All right, that's where we have to leave this conversation on CBC. We'll do this again, probably most likely on Monday, so that we continue this conversation. All right, and I thank all my guests for being here this morning. Wilson Sosion, former NAT Secretary General, Kennedy Echesa, lecturer at the University of Nairobi, and also an advocate of the High Court, Otoa Sifuna, teacher, and also Dr. Julius Juan for calling in. He's the Principal Secretary, State Department of Early Learning and Basic Education. So, Sion, I know you want a closing remark. It's not going to be possible because I've run out of time. And if we agree on 30 seconds each, we'll all take 2 minutes. So let's just leave it at that point. All right, thank you so much for watching. This is concerning you. We'll try and make sure your voice is always fast. Right now, we're taking a quick break. When we come back, it's time to work out with Willis Bazoo Raburu. All right, see you in a bit.